Let's talk Tanya for the 6th of Shevat of a leap year. In yesterday's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explained that someone whom he characterizes as a Rasha Be'emes, someone who is a truly wicked person, cannot begin to serve God in a sustainable way, meaning to be able to regularly assert the supremacy of the mind over the heart and be able to control their impulses and their desires unless they do teshuvah beforehand. And we concluded yesterday with a question, what kind of teshuvah are we talking about? And with this, the Alter Rebbe is referring to something which he talks about at length in the third part of Tanya, in Igeres HaTeshuvah, where there the Alter Rebbe explains that there are two different levels of teshuvah. There is what is called teshuvah ilah, the higher level of teshuvah, and teshuvah tata, and the lower level of teshuvah. And without getting into it at length over here, the basic difference between the two of them is that when a person sins, they take their soul, their godly soul, and by the way, also they drag along with it the divine source of their soul, and the soul now is in captivity, in the clutches of the klipa, in the clutches of the powers of impurity, and more specifically, the animal soul. And when that happens, so the godly soul is in galus, it's in exile, and it cannot assert itself, so therefore, no, it loses its natural supremacy, its ability to control the heart. The lower level of teshuvah is undoing the damage that is done by the sin, releasing the godly soul from its captivity, and once it is released from its captivity, it can once again assert its dominance over the animal soul. It is the lower level of teshuvah that is necessary for that Rasha Be'emes, for the truly wicked person, in order to be able to serve God in a sustainable way. There's a higher level of teshuvah, as mentioned, teshuvah ilah, but that doesn't have to do with sins. That's actually restoring the soul to the way it was before it even entered the body. Again, we're not going to get into that at length. That'll be in the third section of Tanya. But the main thing is, the Alter Rebbe is telling us over here, the type of teshuvah necessary for the Rasha Be'emes, the wicked person, or as we said yesterday, the person who's the addict, in order to be able to start serving God in a sustainable way, that is teshuvah tata, the lower level of teshuvah, breaking the tentacles, the clutches of the klipa, which now hold the godly soul captive. With this, we've concluded what we called the long way. In Tanya is all about how to be victorious in our struggle over the animal soul. And in general, the Tanya is going to have two strategies for how to approach the battle against the animal soul. The first strategy, we just finished talking about that now. The first strategy is the long way, and that entails, again, using the mind to actively think about God and thereby to create feelings towards God. And that was the topic of the last two chapters. We spoke about contemplating the greatness of God and creating feelings. Then the Alter Rebbe said, hey, but what if you can't create very blazing, warm, hot, passionate feelings? The Alter Rebbe says, that's fine. It's enough to have also cold feelings, intellectual feelings. And then this chapter, the Alter Rebbe says, and if even that's not working, you're using your mind, and you can't even create those intellectual feelings in order to control your behavior, then possibly you have to look into the other option, which is Rasha Be'emes, a person who, at least in the area of this sin, is a truly wicked person, and therefore you need to do teshuvah in order to be able to reassert the dominance of the mind over the heart. That is the first strategy. Then there is another strategy, which is called the short way, and that will take us a few chapters to understand what the short way is, and we will start on the journey of understanding and exploring the short way in tomorrow's Tanya.